Chapter 12. The Black Horror. The Elden Lord had finally found it. The sunken cathedral. It was black, haunted, and the windows showed very little of the inside, but what had waited within was the stuff of nightmares. On the outside, tendrils of black etheric living ooze wrapped itself around the structure, and pulsed with an energy inside. and pulsed with an evil energy inside. The cathedral itself was inside a ditch, and a black etheric body of water flooded the area, hiding the stone and paths beneath its black mirror. It was very quiet, except the occasional movement in the water, that stirred a harrowing feeling of being watched, which brought a heavy feeling of anxiety upon the Elden Lord, for he knew there were worse things than death. Although he felt confident with his victory at Sorrow Keep, he still felt something greater pulling his strings behind the scenes. As he stood 20 meters from the great door of the Black Cathedral, a scream from above pierced his ears, and 10 winged ferals lunged at him from above, biting into his flesh and trying to tear him from his armor. These creatures were blackened, like all life here, and their bodies were infected with bulbous pus and disease. Their strength was wild and ferocious, as they clawed and clawed to enwrap the Elden Lord, unpeeling him from his defense, and biting into the blind spots of his armor, as his life force stained his attire. He casted fireballs at the creatures as he drank a crimson flask, and incinerated even the younglings that dared to show courage against a mighty warrior as he. Their charred corpses fell from the sky, and with heavy splashes that disturbed the black etheric waters, something else had awoken. A wraith worm appeared. A black worm of black etheric energy roared to life in a shrieking scream that pierced the ears of all that heard its hungry cries. The winged ferals retreated, and the worm started its assault. The Elden Lord dodged and rolled each attack, but the attacks grew more desperate and fierce, and were now becoming faster and faster as the worm pounded the ground over and over, causing waves in the water that stood a meter tall. More worms appeared, smaller than the first, but just as hungry for the soul of the Elden Lord called to them. The Elden Lord sprayed fire, killing one of the smaller worms, which shrieked as flames engulfed the darkness in blazing glory. The bigger worm launched its attack again, while the Elden Lord rolled and spewed more fire into its side in the middle. The flames roared and severed the creature in half, but it still writhed with blackened foam still. There were 2 of them now. The Elden Lord set his great sword alight with fire. As the runes on it glowed orange with fury, he sliced through the other worms with ease as their bodies evaporated into the black waters below. Their ethereal essences became one with the water. Now the twin worms, although they were half as large, were just as ferocious, as both were one entity, and their movements were perfect in synchronization, dealing deadly blow to the Elden Lord as they worked together to slam his body into the ground, throwing it like how a child would throw a toy. Their piercing screams emboldened their assaults on his body, for his armor was in a dire state, and again he had only half his flask number. As he was assaulted and thrown, he thought about Millicent, the pain she had endured, her soul trapped and tortured, fed upon by a parasitic being of darkness, and as he did so, something awakened inside him, a rage that burned his body with vigor and purpose, something that made him go into a state of berserk. He thunderously roared that shook the waters beneath him, and overcame the harrowing screams of the worms themselves in the sky. He ran and threw himself like a projectile at the worms, mounting their black gelatinous bodies. His eyes burned with fire as he buried his burning great sword of scorching fire into the first creature, spilling its essences across the land. Shrieking as it fell to the ground, he leapt onto the other, which tried to swallow him whole, only for him to enter its mouth and thrusted his weapon into its head, splitting it apart and crashing to the ground where he stood. watching it evaporate into etheric dust, healing himself as it did so. A chime of a tune was heard. The great cathedral door was unlocked, and this was his moment. He opened the great wooden door covered in vines of etheric darkness, and before him he saw a great open hall, filled with windows of stained glass that depicted demonic images of power and sacrifice. The store beneath his feet was covered in the same black etheric waters that mirrored the world around him. Like a black mirror of evil that sucked inside any light, there were two great floors to the sunken cathedral. One was the great ground floor, with numerous columns that upheld the second floor, with numerous pews that were used in ancient times for mass, and a great altar was in the centre of the cathedral itself. The second floor could be accessed by a flight of round stairs that was by the side of the cathedral, and by going to the second floor you could overlook the ground floor, as the second floor was meant for extra viewing space. There was a third flight of stairs that led to the bell tower and rooftop above, which had numerous holes in the roof, and was the main nesting area for the winged ferals and their clusters of foul-smelling eggs. As he looked in front of himself, however, there he saw Millicent, lifted above the ground in darkness. Light was shining from outside onto her pale naked body, and her scarlet hair glistened in ethereal beauty. He was shaken. This was the first time he would lay eyes upon her. A thought came to him. Is this a trick? As he stared at her, contemplating her form, was she just an illusion to gather him there? He could barely speak. He tried to lift his voice up from his throat, but he struggled. He took a deep breath and said two words that Millicent had longed to hear for so long. My love. Millicent lifted her head up to see him, her hero, her tarnished love, who was now the great Elden Lord. Is this a trick? She said aloud, looking at the darkness that wrapped her. The Elden Lord saw the creature that held her high, first invisible, for he had only wished to lay eyes on her, but now he saw this dark evil had sprawled across the sunken cathedral, tendrils wide open to meet such a delicious soul of the Elden Lord. The Elden Lord smiled. If it was a trick, then he had completely succumbed to it, but he did not care. In that moment, he wished it was real, for it truly was. No, my love, I am no trick. I will save you, for I have come across worlds for you. Millicent, for the first time, in the Elden Lord's eye, began to cry as tears wept from her, and down her naked body, falling from her toes, and into the black ethereal waters below. Darkness enshrouded them. The little light was cast out, and only the Elden Lord and the hanging Millicent could be seen. It was like they were inside a pitch-black room, a mental prison. Subtle, dark, harrowing laughter filled the hall. Oh, how easy it was to get you here. That fool Luciferius has delivered you to me finally. Although it was so easy to trick him into thinking he was a great and powerful scholar. Blessed with vision. People are so easy to manipulate. Let her go, shouted the Elden Lord, claiming dominion with his voice. Evil continued to laugh at his pathetic commands. I have been here for an eternity, and I will continue to be here for an eternity, just like you and her will be here for an eternity, for eternity enshrines us all. Now join me as I feed on both your souls together, and you will sate my everlasting hunger. I don't think so, he shouted aloud as he leapt towards Millicent with intentions of freeing her from her black prison. In an instant he was intercepted, as numerous tendrils wrapped themselves around him, engulfing him in a black ethereal flesh that bound him so tightly, raising him upwards towards Millicent. "Now you are mine." "What a touching reunion," it said, as both the Elden Lord and Millicent were only a metre apart from each other's lips. The Elden Lord looked at Millicent, as her crying eyes were so happy to see him again. "So, how are you?" he said comically. She smiled at the absurdity, before crying once more with continuing happiness. "When I died, I never thought I would end up here. But to know that you are with me now makes it all worth the pain I have endured." "If I had known sooner, this filthy creature would not be alive now," he said so openly with defiance, resonating his voice so the harbinger could hear. "I don't think there's escape for us. I think you are doomed to stay here with me," Millicent said sadly, as she did not wish for him to be trapped and bound like she was, fed upon for all eternity by the spawn of darkness eternal. The Elden Lord smiled. "Then I would have it no other way." The Elden Lord smiled at Millicent in a strange way, and his eyes looked at her in a rather peculiar manner. Her eyebrows lifted, curious as to what was happening, as a plant stirred in the shadows of darkness itself. The black horror stirred, uncomfortable at the tone and body language of the duo, wondering, contemplating what had been discussed without words, and stirred with an anger in its evil form. In the Elden Lord's hand was a bell. Millicent looked at it, contemplating what it was, and as the Elden Lord gave it a small shake, even while his body was wrapped in evil, something started to happen on the ground beneath them. A new Elden Lord emerged from the black waters. A mimic tear was used. The black horror stirred with anger at the sight of another Elden Lord, while the mimic rushed forward without contemplation or fear. It struck blow after blow after blow, slicing away the black flesh from the black horror's core. The Elden Lord clone was hit again and again and again with decisive blow that swept the waters of the cathedral's hall. Nothing could break him. The mimic sliced and carved the tendrils of the creature apart, releasing Millicent and the Elden Lord. The turning point of the battle, as both now the Elden Lord and his mimic joined together and attacked in unison, swiping away at the black ethereal flesh of the monster. The Elden Lord threw pots of fire, while the mimic sprayed fire directly into the core. The entire cathedral was alight in the fires of defiance. Black knights flooded into the cathedral door, supported by miniature wraith worms to support them. The mimic began to handle a small platoon of enemies, while the Elden Lord himself got rather personal with the black horror, and inflicted grievous injury as its form burned and began to shrink, as the mass of its being was annihilated by the Elden Lord's merciless attack. With only one crimson flask left, he drank it, and began another flurry of attacks, causing extreme pain to the source of evil, while the Elden Lord's mimic made quick work of the knights and worms. Finally, at the end of the fight, the Elden Lord, with such strong volition, summoned a minor Erdtree. Its gilded golden rays of pure light scorched and burned the remaining thing of horror apart, annihilating its evil black particles of being, as flakes of it burned while dancing amongst the air, before fading away, and then it was gone. An ugly voice of darkness lingered for a few seconds. "You cannot kill me. I am eternity itself," before the voice was heard no more. The mimic faded, and the battle was won yet again, for the Elden Lord never failed. Millicent, however, was at the other end of the hall, Her bare naked body lay upon the ground by the wall. The Elden Lord rushed to her. Millicent, Millicent, are you still breathing? He said, fearing that with the end of the monster, her life would possibly be forfeit. I am okay, said Millicent, as the Elden Lord turned her body over. Although I cannot feel my legs, I believe my body is broken. What a jest! For I lost my limbs to the rot, now I lose my body to hell itself. What a comedy. The Elden Lord cradled her into his arms. Fear not, the love of my life, for you could not leave this world anyway. So I am truly cursed? She asked sadly, interrupting him. No, you are not cursed. I must ferry your soul to the realm of the living, my dear. And there, I will reunite you with the body of your grandmother, your mother, and yourself. And you will be made whole again. Melania is dead? My mother is dead? Marika the Golden as well? Yes, my dear. They are dead, and they gave me little choice in the matter. For I would argue that they were already waiting to die. Melania's form was rotting like yours, but in a much dire state, and Marika herself had lost all hope of life, even as her consort Radagon controlled her body. I hope you can forgive me. There is nothing to forgive, my love. You were right, but I am afraid. Fear not, warrior maiden. We will be reunited soon, he said as he pulled out the needle of souls before her. Its form has changed, but that is my needle that I gave to you. You kept it all this time? Always, he said finally, kissing her on the lips as they embraced, before piercing the back of her skull and then brain with the needle, transferring her soul into it as a gushing of ethereal purple magic swirled into it. The needle now glowed a gentle hue of blue. The Elden Lord began to cry as her body faded into dust. Now, the true work began. He left that world behind with ease, and as he journeyed and passed through that dark portal, the Wraith Tree cried out with screams at him, for it had now lost both the Imperium and the Elden Lord. Its hunger was stronger than ever. Thank you for listening. I will see you in the next episode.